Hi everyone, and thanks for joining this webinar. Today I'm going to talk about four different topics as you see on the screen. For the first topic, I would like to introduce our GIS database, and I will show you how you can access and download the information from this online database, which we call it Map Download Manager, and then what kind of information you can access from these online services, and how can you use that in order to create your project. So I would like to open the tool right away without wasting any time and show you how this option works on the tool. So when you open the HTZ tool, for the first page you will see the map of the world as you see on the screen. And accessing our online database is pretty easy and straightforward. So let me show you how to do that. Let's say this is the area that I would like to work on. So I can go to rectangle and then say select rectangle area and then draw a rectangle around my desired area. As soon as you click, you will see that the Map Download Manager, this is the online database that we have available on the tool. So you can click on that, and then this will take you to the page, as you see, which on the right side, you will see the area that you selected or your area of the interest. And on the left side, you will see different columns which shows different information. So on the first column, you will see that the locations, which is either completely inside the area of the interest, or it has some crossing with that. So for example, if I go here and select Baltimore, you will see that this selection is entirely inside my area of the interest. Also, I have Alabama, which has some crossing section with my selected area. So on the second column, you will see that we have the steps in meter. This is the resolution of the maps or the layers that you're trying to download. Third column is the projection type or your coordination system. And on the fourth column, you will see that we are constantly working on this online database to update it based on the available resources in each area. So as you see, some of them are pretty new, 2021, some of them are 2019, but most of them are pretty upgraded and up to date, again, based on the resources available for that area. And then the last and most important column is the layers that you can download. So this layer is actually the information that you're going to use in order to create your project. This is how you can figure out what kind of layers is available for each area. And if you want to download, it's easy. So you just select the area. For example, in my case, I select Washington, D.C., and I can just download it by pressing this button on the left. As soon as you say download, you will see that the download started on the second tab. And then as soon as it's finished, it will save the download in this directory. This is the user-defined directory, of course, where you can change it, put it your shell folder directory or other location that you would like. So I can go to C, ATDI, and Maps, and you will see the list of the areas that I've already downloaded. So for my case today, I just downloaded the Washington, D.C. So let me, for now, just drag and drop this zip folder. This will be easiest way to create your project. Another way to create a project will be if you go to File and then say Project Manager. So you just open the Project Manager and say New Project. You remember that we download this file or this zip folder. So you can unzip it and then see which layers is included in this folder. As you see, we were expecting to see our DTM, which the format for that in HTZ is RGE, or your geodata for the DTM layer. We have RBL, which is our building layer, and we have RSO, which is our clutter layer. So you can go ahead, select all these three, and then drag and drop it in this folder, or on the right side where you define the new project. So from here you can save project, and then you can give it a location wherever you want to save it. So this is another way of creating your project. So once you do that and you save your project, the project is open with all the layers in it, and you've saved it already. And as you see on the right side, you can access different layers for your project if you want to only see your DEM or your digital elevation model in different rendering type, if it's colorful or if it's only shade, or you can access the map from different resources like Bing or Google Earth, or you can select your DEM plus clutter. You can also select your DEM plus buildings. This will show you all the buildings available in your area. So this is how you download and create a project from scratch. All right, now that we've created our project, I just want to show you for the second topic how you can manipulate your building layer, how you can add or modify any buildings to your current project. Okay, let's go back to the project that we just created. And if you want to add or remove or modify any types of clutter, or let's say your building layer in this case, I can show you from the tool. You can access our clutter setting, where you can see it will define different clutter name and their corresponding code for that clutter, for that type of the clutter. So if you're talking about open area in the tool for this project, you can mention that as code number 0. Or in our case, we're trying to play around with our building layer. So this is the building, and then the corresponding code for that is building 9. Okay, remembering that, let's get back to our project. And let's say I want to add a new building or the new construction here where I don't see it on the map. This just has been built, and I know there is a building here. I want to create that and then use that in my project. So if you see on the right side, we call it the right legend. So you will see on these two columns, when you move your mouse, you will see that it will give you some information about the clutter type and their corresponding height. So for example, on this location, I have building clutter, which you can also say as code number 9. And then the height of this building is 4 meters. Okay, let's say I want to add a clutter here, or I want to add a building in this location. So in order to do that, you can say polygon and then go to draw mask. Let's say this is the new building that I'm aware of, and just build. You just click, and then say continue. So you go to raster operation, and then here you can say new building height. Or if you have the building layers already created, you can adjust the building height. You can modify it, increase or decrease the building height. But in my case, I will just say new building height. And then here you see it says new building elevation. I can say, for example, 10 meter. The clutter code, 1, you don't need to change this, but for your new clutter code, instead of being whatever clutter code that we had in this area, now I want it to be on the building layer. So I'll just use my clutter code 9 as we just saw in my clutter setting. For the building, we have clutter code 9. And then it's asking, do you want that inside the polygon considered as clutter 9 or outside? Which in our case, we are considering inside. So I just leave it as 0. If you say OK, we see that now I just created this building in my map. So if you want to see if really this building is causing our coverage to be different from before, there is one way to just put a station here and run the coverage and see how it's affecting. But there is also another way if you want to see the profile now between these 2 points. So I can just go to profile and say I want to see the profile from this location to this location. And then as you see, this is the new building layer that we just created with the 10-meter height. And if I hover my mouse on top of it, you will see on the right side here that it says building with the elevation 10 meter. And this is how you create the new building or modify the new building layers. So I can go ahead and add a station here quickly and then run a coverage. I'm not changing in here, just run the coverage for 2 kilometers. And then I want to show you how this building is affecting our coverage, as you see, which wouldn't do that before if I didn't have this building layer. Okay, after you download the information from our map download manager, different layers, and you create your project, you can quickly access the map properties from map properties, or the short key for that is F3. So here you will find some useful information. On the right side where it says clutter, you will see the participation of each clutter in the entire project. So for example, for code 9, which is our code for the building, so you will see that the surface which is containing this code 9. So for example, 110 kilometers square, almost 110,000 kilometers square. So on the left side, you will see other useful information like your latitude, longitude, your coordination system. And the reason that I opened this option or open this page is to show you that you can see your resolution after you create your project. So if you see on the DTM step, I have 2 meter resolution, for example, for this project. So if you want to do any kind of work around the 3D option, which is available in the tool, you should have at least 5 meter resolution, which is considering as high quality resolution, and better. So anything between 5 to 1, you should have the option to access our 3D feature in the tool. So let's say for any area in this project, you want to access the 3D view of that location. So you can just select the rectangle again and then draw a rectangle around the area of your interest where you want to see it in 3D view. So you see that you have an option to choose 3D view dynamic, and then you say OK. The tool will building a 3D view of the area that you just created. Okay, for our third topic, I would like to talk about our advanced MIMO option, or the MIMO feature that we have in the tool. Let's go back to the project that we created. I just added a random station here. And if you go click on it, select the site, and then go to parameters, this is actually where you can access all the information or all the settings, the configuration for your site. From the site name to the power, bandwidth, antenna height, frequency, and so forth. So I'm not going to talk about all of these detail now. We just go to the pattern on the top. You see that we have different tabs. So I select pattern where I'm going to show you how you can use our MIMO feature and different beamforming option that we have. This tab, probably if we want to talk about all the details, we can talk about it hours and hours, but in our case, I will show you some good and useful feature that you can really take advantage of that for your project. So you see on the left side we have horizontal pattern, and on the right side we have vertical pattern. There are different options that you can select the pattern. You can use our online antenna library where it has most of the antenna constructor. Let me quickly show you. Go to ATDI communication, and then you see we have the antenna library. If you go to our MSI antenna, this will list for you most of the popular constructor for the antennas. And then if you open any of them, like for example Catrain, and you will see that it's divided based on the frequency or based on the type. Like for example in Catrain, if you want to design your network for tetra or for frequency of 1800, so if you click on that, different antenna type is listed here. I'm not going to talk about all the details as I said, but you have different options to import your pattern. But probably the easiest way is just select from some of the predefined pattern that we've introduced in our pattern antenna. So if you go to, for example, horizontal pattern, I can go to select, and then you see these are some predefined pattern that we put here. If you want to just quickly use, let's say I want to select this for now, and then you see that the pattern on the horizontal changed, and then I can do it for the same, doing the same for the vertical. And then you go to select this. So this is the vertical pattern that I selected for now. And then as you see now, I have the panel antenna, which I can point it into different direction. So you see that we have azimuth that you can select, and we have the tilt that you can use for your vertical. For our case, let me just put it on 0, and I would like to introduce you with our comprehensive MIMO antenna, and then I will show you how you can use our beamforming option as well. So let's say I select a single user MIMO spatial multiplexing, and let's say I have the panel with the array of 8 by 8 antenna on the MIMO. So let me show you something quickly in my presentation. So you see, when we're talking about the panel antenna, it consists of different antennas on the horizontal and vertical domain. So in this case, I have the panel of 8 by 8 massive MIMO antenna. It can be 64 by 64, 4 by 4, or however your panel is designed. So one thing to consider when we are talking about beamforming angle, we are talking about the angle of the entire panel. So we're not talking about individual antennas. And then when we are talking about the steps, we are talking about the angles in between different beams. Could be on the horizontal or it could be on the vertical. And I will show you how this can be configured in the tool. Let's go back to the tool now. As you see, the BSR, or our beam steering range, that's the panel, that's the aperture for your panel, the angle for your panel. For now, I will just select, let me actually go ahead here because I put another station which will show you exactly how this will look like. I will just isolate this side to work on this. Go to parameter, and then as you see, I selected the same pattern for horizontal and vertical. And then in here, I would like to just put 0 and 0 for now. Select the 8 by 8, for example, the panel. It doesn't matter. I just want to show you how the pattern will look like. Do it for 1 kilometer. And as you see here, this is the same exact antenna pattern that we selected. But there are other options as far as your panel beamforming angle and the steps that you can select. Let's go ahead quickly and check those. So if I go back to parameter and select the beamforming angle, for example, to be 60 degrees, and then the step, which I already introduced between the beams, so I can select every 10 degree, or I can select to be 30. We'll check both, and you will get the exact idea how that looks like. So before even you run the coverage, you can view how that will look like on your map, and then you run the coverage. So if I increase this to 30 and then view it again, you see every 30 degrees you will have one beam. And then let's check that or verify that in the coverage as well. So I said okay. Let's run the coverage again for 1 kilometer. You see that I have angle of 60 degrees for my aperture, plus and minus 60 degrees. And then I will have 30-degree step, okay? So on the right side, which is plus 60 degrees, so I have 1 and 2, and on the left I have 1 and 2. Okay, this is as far as your horizontal beamforming. If you want to do the same for vertical, you can. Let's say I define this to be 20 degree, for example, and then I want to have it every 10 or every 5 degree. Let's look at it here, and this is how you will define different beams for your vertical domain. So if you want, you also have the option to select the multi-port or multi-beam for your antenna in both horizontal and vertical again. So that option is accessible from this menu. You can go here and then select multi-port or multi-beam. And then here you have the option to select the angle or the azimuth that you want to have your different ports. So let's say in my case I put 30 and 330 for the 2 ports that I want to have. And then as you see on the horizontal, now I have one beam on the, or one port on the 30 degree, and I have another one on 330. And if I go to the view, I can see how the horizontal pattern is changed right now. And then if you say okay, and then run the coverage again, this is the new pattern that you will have. Okay, for the last topic, I would like to introduce our ray tracing coverage, and then how you can use that option to run the coverage, and how's that affecting our coverage. So I will show you how to run the coverage for any stations, and then probably we can include the ray tracing option, and after that see the result. So let's go back to the tool again. This is the project that we created. I just put the random site again here. So in order to access the propagation type and then select any ray tracing, or if you want to run it for the 5G coverage, you go to the tools, propagation model, and you can go to settings. So you will see that this page is a very comprehensive information about the type of the propagation modeling that you're trying to use. But in our case, let's just go ahead and see how our 3D reflecting and the ray tracing is working. So if you select this option, you will see that you get the window pop up where it's asking you what kind of reflection method you want to use. So it's good that I introduced you with these reflection types that we have. So There is something that calls mirror reflection, which the angle of the incident and the angle of the reflection is exactly the same. In this case, if you're using a very smooth and flat surface, and then as you see, we have this reflection called specular reflection, where the angles of the incident and angle of the reflection is the same. So you also have something called diffuse reflection, or sometimes they call it Lambertian reflection, where there is no smooth surface, and then the angles of the incident is totally different from the angle of your reflection. So being said that, let's go back to our tool, and then you see we have listed two scenarios, like the Lambertian, which have the diffuse and partial specular, and then we have the specular, which is the ray tracing, also called a ray tracing, which is only for the smooth surface where the angles are the same. So in our case, because we are trying to see it on the buildings, on the construction, or the obstacle around the site, so let's select the first option. If you select the large distance, this option might be really time consuming, because it also depends on your resolution as well, because the tool has to consider this kind of reflection for every single pixel. So I will just select this Lambertian, and then I selected the frequency. So here you can limit your distance. If you select the higher distance, the more time it will take. You can just go ahead and then select the coverage calculation for 1 kilometer, and then you say OK. And then you see that the tool is trying to calculate all the reflections coming from different obstacle. And then if you see the tool define different grid type, and it has to calculate for every single pixel. If there is any obstacle that the tool needs to calculate the reflection for, it has to be calculated like this. So as you see, it's a little bit time consuming, and considering that I've selected 100 meters, sometimes you want to see it in 200, 300. So you always have to consider this as a time consuming process. I've run the different coverage based on the specular reflection, no reflection, and Lambertian reflection. And then as you see, I put the results in one page where you can compare and see how they're different based on the type of the propagation or the reflection that you're selecting. So with no ray tracing, you will see how I just spotted like 3 points where you can see different coverage for these 3 options. So you see how they're different based on the type of the reflection that you're selecting.